Aloha and welcome to the first episode of Returning to the Aina. My name is Timothy Reese and I'll be your guide on this journey. The purpose of this video series is to share information regarding sustainable agricultural practices as well as demonstrate how easy it is to grow your own food. We hope that this will empower you to begin growing your own food and move towards a more sustainable existence, which can contribute to the food security of your community, your overall health, as well as the health of our environment. Before we get started on this journey, I think it's really important to understand why we would want to take this journey and what it is that we're asking people to do. It's probably a good idea that you have a destination if you're planning on going someplace. And since we're talking about sustainable practices and sustainability, understanding where it is we're trying to get people to move towards is probably really important. However, that is kind of the challenge that is before us, is how to create that sustainable existence in our modern world. It can be quite challenging to find examples of sustainable practices within today's society, the world that we live in, this convenient life. But one example is nature, the natural order of things. It becomes a problem when you start to integrate the human factor, human practices, human behaviors with nature. However, we are truly blessed to live here in Hawaii because the Aboriginal people of these lands, the Kanaka Maoli, had achieved sustainability. The aquaculture was at a level not seen anywhere else in the world. There were food intensification eras, such as in the 1400s under Umi a Liloa, the Kona field system on the island of Hawaii. That's 34,000 acres of land that was not irrigated that produced a tremendous amount of food. The Ahupua'a resource management system. We have the examples proven to achieve sustainability. So I feel that it is appropriate for us to take a look at the Kanaka Maoli culture and their mo'olelo, oral traditions, in order to gain a better understanding of how they were able to integrate their practices with their natural environment to achieve sustainability. We will be looking at a fragment of the mo'olelo of Haloa, or the first kalo plant, or taro plant, named Haloa Naka Lau Kapalili. This, in my opinion, is a mo'olelo of food security and potentially a building block and principle of the concept of Malama Aina. Wakea, the Sky Father, and Ho'ohoku Kalani had a child. Unfortunately, the child was stillborn. In her grief, Ho'ohoku Kalani buried the child outside of their hale. From the grave came the first kalo plant. Ho'ohoku Kalani named the kalo plant Haloa Naka Laukapalili after witnessing the first heart-shaped leaf of the kalo plant quivering in the wind. Wakea, the Sky Father, and Ho'ohoku Kalani had another child. This time he was healthy, and they named him Haloa. The Kanaka Maoli believed that they were related to the kalo plant, that it was their kuleana or responsibility to malama their family member, and in exchange their family member would malama them. As a Kanaka's family grew, so did their need for food. As long as the Kanaka planted kalo and took care of his family member, the kalo would produce offspring, or oha. These oha would increase the planting stock for the following season, ensuring a greater supply of food to feed his family. It might have been this connection to a plant that allowed the Kanaka Maoli to achieve sustainability. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demonstration just to show you how easy it is to get started growing your own food. I have a couple containers here, plastic and a carton. I cut the carton in half already. I have some potting soil. I have a little bit of gravel. I have some lettuce seeds. I also have some water and a couple knives. I used the serrated knife to cut the carton in half, and I have a very narrow paring knife. So I cut the carton in half. Next, you want to flip it over, and you need to perforate the bottom or make some holes in the bottom to allow water to drain out. So pointing the blade away from me, just giving it a little tap on the bottom, and a little tap on the bottom. And as you make the incision, you want to twist the knife to kind of open up that hole. Sometimes if you just pop the knife through and leave it as a slit on the bottom, the drainage can be a little poor. So this is kind of just twisting it, giving a slight twist. Even if you make a large circle, that's fine. It would just, you want to ensure that the water drains out of your pots. There are very few plants that don't mind having their roots submerged in water, and if you have poor drainage, that's what will end up happening, and most of the time it'll end up killing your plant. So make sure you have some holes in the bottom, just the holes. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of gravel. The gravel is to assist in that drainage. Sometimes if you just add straight soil into these, the soil can actually kind of stick along the bottom and prevent drainage from happening. It is not necessary. Making larger holes at the bottom could offset the fact that you don't have gravel, or you could use wood chips, you could use pieces of wood, something to create a space between the soil and the bottom of your container. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take some soil, and I'm going to fill this container up to about a ½ inch from the top. And then I am going to water this. You don't really want to pack your soil in there. A nice loose fluffy soil will help the roots travel through the medium or the soil, and it just, by packing it down, you can prohibit or prevent it from the roots from spreading outwards. But this potting soil has an aggregate in there, a perlite or vercuminite, hopefully the natural one. So now I'm just adding some water to wet the soil, and I do have this on a plate to catch some of that water, and you'll notice that it does shrink down a little bit. So in watering pots, it's a good practice to pour water, stop pouring the water, let the water drain through the pot, and then pour more water. What happens is if you just keep dumping water on, the water kind of tends to follow the same path. Whereas if you pour it, let it drain out, and then start adding more water, it's more likely that the water will take a different path, and it will give you a more thorough saturation of the soil. So now I got my wet soil. I'm going to add some lettuce seeds. This is a mix. Lettuce seeds are really tiny. So we'll discuss seeds in another video. So you don't need to make a real deep indentation in there for the lettuce seeds. You could almost surface sow them, put them right on the top, and just lightly push them down and spread some of the soil from the surrounding edges over the top of the lettuce seeds. And that's it. In that demonstration, how much of what I was doing could be considered sustainable? Not much. Yes, I did reuse a milk carton, but over time that milk carton's structural integrity would begin to degrade, and I would end up throwing it away, and it would end up in a landfill. As I mentioned earlier, one of the purposes of these videos is to empower people to begin growing their own food. And that demonstration was to show how easy it can be. If you were looking for a sustainable container to use, you could use something like this, a coconut cup, or this is an apu that I plan on drinking ava from. And if this isn't big enough, you could use an ipu, or there was such a thing as a sustainability meter. On one end, you would have an aboriginal existence, or in this case, a Kanaka Maoli existence, which is sustainable. And on the other end, you would have our modern day existence, which I would contend is an unsustainable existence. And it is unreasonable to expect anyone to make the transition from here all the way to here. In part because this sustainable existence we know that is proven was a Neolithic or a Stone Age existence. But anywhere from here to here, I believe, is the destination. That is where we are trying to get people to move, is towards a more sustainable existence. The reason a person would choose to make such changes is going to vary greatly, depending on that individual's perspective. And this is where intent comes into play. We each have our own perspective. It's unique to us as individuals. It's based in large part on our life experiences and the information that we've been exposed to. So from one perspective, somebody may not see anything wrong with the current system in which we purchase foods from the supermarket or the health food stores. Their intent for growing food might simply be because they cannot find that item in a local supermarket. From another person's perspective, their intent might be to take control of the quality of the food that they are consuming, as well as feeding their family. From another perspective, somebody may be choosing to improve their financial situation and creating value-added products from the crops that they grow. This intent is going to be the thing that drives you, that keeps you on this course. Mahalo for watching. Join us next week as we look at site location and preparation.